One of the most advanced things you can do inside of an Airtable form is pre-fill information. It can be a little bit difficult learning how exactly this works. So in this video, I'm breaking down all of the key basics for us so that you can start building your own pre-filled forms and saving your end users time when they're entering information. So if learning more about these advanced form options is of interest to you, stick around and let's get into it. Hey, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Gareth and this is Gap Consulting. We make it our mission to help you unlock the full potential of no-code tools, and Airtable is absolutely one of our favorite no-code tools here in 2024. Now, as I already mentioned in this video, we're breaking down those advanced form functionalities, specifically how to pre-fill data in your Airtable form. But before we get to the heart of it, I first want to invite you to join me for some free training. If you're new to Airtable, or if you still just haven't mastered the basics, check out my Airtable crash course. Absolutely free. It can be sent to your email once you sign up at gapconsulting.io/airtable-crash-course. I'll include a link for that wherever you are watching this video. But without further ado, let's hop on into my screen. We're going to start with the database itself. This is a database we used for a previous example where we have projects and we're linking it to tasks. And the first thing to note when it comes to Airtable forms is that they are good at one thing. They are creating records in one table, not multiple tables. So for us, we're gonna have to pick, are we creating records in our projects table or in our tasks table? If you want to be able to create records in multiple tables, you must either use a different form software or build two separate Airtable forms and let people go fill them out independently. So in order to build a new form, let's suppose that we're building here in our projects table. We can come down here and select form on the left-hand side of our screen. If your views are collapsed, you'll see it like this. So just click this open, and then down here in the bottom corner, you'll find forms. And so when we click this, we can create a new form view, or we can continue with the upgraded experience, which is going to allow us to build the form in the Airtable interfaces. This is a new update for 2024. And to be perfectly honest, the form builder in interfaces is more robust, and it's going to give us some more advanced options. So I will choose to do this. However, you don't have to. You can use the old form builder and just create the form view. Either way, we're going to be pre-filling the forms the same way. The same syntax is going to apply. But before we get to that, we need to first set up our form so that it contains the elements we want. So if we were to bring in our fields here on the right-hand side, we can see that it's defaulting to the name field, but we can include the assignee and we can also include tasks. I don't want to actually include tasks because I want to create new tasks as we enter a project. So I will ditch tasks, but you can see that you can easily add all the different fields that already exist in your table, and you can add new fields as well if you need to. So for us, we're going to keep it with just those two fields, name and assignee. Now, the next thing that we need to do is publish our form. So in the upper right corner, we'll see that we have the publish option, and then we'll go to share it. Now, in terms of sharing, you'll notice that it's saying, who do you want to have access to your form? And I'm going to say, well, anybody on the web. So this would mean with this option, let's back up. Anybody can fill out this form. I can share this URL, send it to someone in an email, and they can just right then and there click that link. It'll take them to the form. When they submit the form, it'll create a new Airtable record. We could also decide that we want to limit it to people at a specific domain. So maybe we're saying, hey, just people who work at our company. So I could limit this to be at Gap Consulting, for example. You can just enter that in here, save it up, and this will limit who's able to actually submit information. And then we can get much more robust as well and say, hey, only users with base access will have this capability. So in this way, people are going to access the form through the Airtable interface itself, and we therefore limit who has access to it. Now for us, again, we're going to want to be able to share this publicly. Now you'll notice that when we check this button or select this option, it's going to tell us that the collaborators will be visible to anyone on the web. And that's because we included an assignee field type, which has to do with the collaborators inside of our database. And there were two different options, myself and a coworker, Sarah. So here you can see that we can hide sensitive data, edit the collaborator field to limit what users can select. I don't really worry about that in this example, so I'll dismiss this option. And once we have this, we can copy the link. Now we can open up in a new URL and just paste that link in and go to it. This is now the live version of the form. Note that I see this on mine, which says I can go back and edit the form or view the underlying data itself. I see that because I'm logged into Airtable, but other folks who would access this form, whether it was embedded on a website or they just go to the link like this, they're not going to see those options. Unless, of course, they have access to the database itself. So here I can just fill out a name, let's say project 5, and I can assign somebody, and I'll make a selection and I will submit. Now, if we head back into Airtable, we're going to then go back to our data, and we will see that immediately that new record's been created here. So project 5 now exists. It's been assigned here. Awesome. Now, what we want to do for our form is unlock pre-filled options and also hidden options, meaning that we pre-fill information so that when somebody visits the link, it already has information written in there for them. Maybe we've selected the assignee, maybe we've given the project a name, and maybe we've even chosen to hide some of these elements. In order to better showcase this, I'm going to actually open up a notepad on my screen so that we can use the different syntax that are going to be required here and write it into the URL. So to start, I must paste the form URL. You'll notice that it's going to start with airtable.com, and then it's calling out my particular app. This is the unique identifier for the application I've just built, and it's also calling out a specific page. This is because I built it in an Airtable interface. If you chose to build your form inside of Airtable views, your URL will look similar to this, but slightly different. It's fine. It's still going to work the exact same when we get to pre-filling the form. Now, while I build this, I also want to come over to our actual form. So let's take a look at the form. We have two fields, one called name and one called assignee. Now, since we haven't called in an actual variable yet, we have to start with a question mark. So the first time you do this, it will always be a question mark. In order to make this a little bit easier to read, I'm going to put it on a new line. So my first command here, and you can think of these as commands. My first command is going to be to say, I want to pre-fill information into the name field here. So what I do is I say question mark first, and that's telling Airtable, hey, I'm about to do something that you haven't seen yet. And so first I have to say prefill, that's one word, underscore. And then I pick the field that I want to prefill. So for us, it's the name field. So I'll write out name here, and then I put equals. So break this down one piece at a time. First, I include a question mark. The reason for this is because I'm telling Airtable something new is coming. Next, I say what I want to do. What's the command? I'm pre-filling information. Underscore is the next component, and then I'm giving it the field name. And after that, I'm including an equal sign. And now it comes time for the value that I want to pre-fill. So I might pre-fill a name here and call it 123 project. Notice that when I do this, I cannot include spaces inside of my URL. If you're including spaces or other illegal characters, your URL will break. And so we have to make sure to be conscious of that. However, if you need to get a space, let's say I want it to be 123 space project, then I can include a %20, that's $20, and this is a command to include a space instead. So again, we can't use certain characters in a URL or a link, and so just implement a %20 to replace that. Now, let's just start here. All I've done is I've said, listen, I'm doing something special. I'm going to pre-fill some information in the name field, and this part right here is what I want to pre-fill. So let's copy our entire URL that we have right here. And in a new window, I'm just going to paste this in, right? And because I used a carriage return, you'll notice that now that's gone because you cannot have a carriage return. And so this is all one line. If I hit enter and I visit this URL right now, what is going to happen? I am pre-filling a name for my project. So I told it the field that I wanted to pre-fill, and it pre-filled it with some information. Now on the next one, maybe I want to also pre-fill a user. So I'm going to use myself as an example here. I want to pre-fill my own name or my own user and assign it. Well, let's go back to our section here, and we're going to write our second command. Now, because we've already included one command, I don't ever use a question mark again. Now, every second, third, fourth, all subsequent commands are going to be ampersand. So question mark is only the first one. Everything after that is an ampersand. Now I want to prefill the assignee field. So I say prefill underscore assignee. Make sure that you are spelling this exactly correctly, and this is case sensitive. Now that I have the field name here, again, equal sign. So this is matching the exact same syntax as what I had before. I'm saying, hey, I'm going to give you a command. That's the purpose of the ampersand. What's the command? I'm going to prefill some information, blank or underscore. What is the field that I'm prefilling? And then equal sign to say, I'm going to give you the value now. And so I'm going to give it my own email address. So if you are using an assignee inside of a prefilled form, you must use the email address that is on file for that individual. Now, in addition, I cannot use an @ symbol inside of a URL. This is actually swapped for a %40 or $40. So I can't say Gareth at Gap Consulting. I must say Gareth %40 gapconsulting.io. So this is the email address associated with my Airtable account, and therefore it will select me as a user inside of the assignee field. Let's now give this a test. So far, so good. We're going to open up a new window, paste in this new URL, and hit enter. This is taking us now to the new URL, and we can see that we've successfully pre-filled both variables. So here it is. You see that it's pre-filled my information because of the fact that I included my email address in the assignee field type. Now, the other type of command that we can include is to hide this information so that somebody cannot change it. So check this out. Now we're going to do one more command. Remember, because this is not the first command, we will always use an ampersand for 2, 3, 4, 5. And now I'm going to say hide, HIDE underscore assignee. This is the field name again that I want to hide. And now I say equals true. If I did not want to hide a field, I would say equals false. But note what I'm doing here. I've pre-filled information and filled out an assignee, and then I've hidden the assignee from the form so that we're still going to collect that information, but the person who submits the form is never even going to see that field. Let's test this out. I'm going to copy this whole thing, open up yet another window, paste it in, and let's see where this takes us. So remember, we've pre-filled the information for the name of the assignee or the email, and we've hidden it from the form. And when I submit the form, let's go now into Airtable, into the database, and we can see that we received the new record because the form was submitted. In fact, we can even look at this, we can expand it, and we see it was created anonymously, which means it was created through this form 9 seconds ago. We see the name, but most importantly, we also see that it was assigned to me, and we never even saw that field on the form. So this is how we use the hide function inside of our formulas. We say hide underscore the field name equals true if we want to hide it, false if we do not want to hide it. Now, one last important thing for you to know is that if somebody were to change the name of this field, you see that it's assignee right now. If they change the name, my URL, my pre-filled link is going to break because the pre-filled link, it's looking for a field named assignee and filling it out with information. It's looking for a field called name and filling it out with information. So if we change the name of the field, it will break our forms as I just demonstrated to you using the methodology that we showed. But there's a better way, in fact, to pre-fill that form. Rather than using the field name, which might change over time, use your field ID. And this field ID can be found if you go to Tools inside of your database and say Manage Fields. Now here, we can say right here on Field ID, this is an ID for the field that will never change. Somebody might change the name to something else, not name. They might change the assignee to call it something else, but the field ID will always remain. So if I copy that field ID and I go back now into my URL, I can replace wherever I had the name of the field, assignee in this case, and just replace it with that field ID. You will know it's a field ID because it begins with FLD for field. So everywhere I had the word assignee, which was the name of that field, I'm replacing it with the actual ID. This is way more foolproof. Watch this. I can copy this. I can go to this form. I can enter it in. It's going to work exactly the same. It's still filling out that information and it's still hiding that information. Let's call this 125 project so we know it creates a new one. Submit that response. Here we are back in Airtable now. And you can see it was just created. So it still filled out the information. It still hid the field. And if I change this and I call it user assigned, my URL is still going to work. It's not breaking because I used the field ID and not the field name. Hey, I know we went pretty fast in this video, but there's a lot to cover when it comes to pre-filling information and then hiding it in your forms. I hope you got a ton of value from the video. If there are questions you have that I did not address here, please feel free to drop them below. And in the meantime, my friend, keep on building.